Hey everybody, welcome to the very first ever live stream for Storm Champ. Welcome. Look at the crew's here. I mean, it's been like 24 hours since we all talked together, but it's been a long time since we've gone live together. Actually, the first time,
Yes.
but it's been a long time since we've been together to record. So, how the hell is everyone doing tonight?
Whew,
Yes.
that's a loaded question, Carlos. Well, in the state of Michigan, we shut down today officially at 12 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
And what's that?
So what does that mean?
Yeah, what does that
Shut
mean? What's that
down.
mean like?
Non-essential business are not allowed to go to work. So it basically means that you can't be out for anything unless you're going to essential business. And I believe food or something like that. Do you know more, Derek? I can't remember everything that Governor Whitner said.
Hey, Derek, I can see your face, but I can't hear you.
I can't hear you, brother. Did you mute yourself?
So sorry.
Let's try
there,
that.
There
you go. There you go.
Hey, hello, everybody. So, no, I haven't heard anything new. I've been focused on just work and everything. So I'm kind of out of the loop a little bit.
I know they did it in Chicago recently, too, and this is kind of the wave of what's coming on a lot of local and state levels. But kind of to what you were saying, Angie, it's like basically non-essential, which I thought was kind of the rule already. Like, this is a big deal. So, like, if you don't have to go anywhere, like, don't. Some people freak out about snow, right? 2 inches or more, schools are shut down. Half inch around here, the whole city comes, like, to a halt. So I'm like, okay, so you know how to kind of self-quarantine or isolate in those moments, but when it's mandated, it feels so much heavier. Like, yeah, you can go and get groceries, you can walk your dog, you can definitely go to the doctor, you know, do what you got to do on those like sort of frontline, you know, pieces. But everything else that isn't essential, let's just hit pause for that, you know, just for a few.
Yeah, they canceled school the rest of the school year here in Virginia, and that's like,
oh wow.
Just think
about
that.
Say where we all are right now, just to let the audience know where we're at.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Angie, where are you at?
Oh, so I'm Derek and I are in Michigan.
And Kim?
I'm in Kansas.
And I am in Virginia, outside
so
of
Washington,
we
have a little representation all over the place. That's great.
We just need somebody on the West Coast, and we'll be in the mix here. But yeah, so they canceled school the rest of the school year in Virginia today, and we're like, how does that work? Like,
well, we've heard timelines through like April, maybe May, but the end of the school year has to be what, like June, right? That's months away from now.
Yeah, it's in June, right? And so I have no idea how this is going to work. Like they don't have the online stuff yet for the kids, right? So some of the teachers are starting to send some assignments, but it's kind of all over the place. And yeah I have no idea like what's going to happen at this point.
Well, I saw some things too coming across my news feed today from educators of K-12 or K-5 even, basically trying to reassure parents and folks home with the little humans that listen, like, if your kid doesn't want to do an hour worth of math, like it's going to be okay. Like everybody is kind of going through this together. We keep hearing that mantra, we're in this together. But it's so true also for the kids who are completely thrown on their sense of normal. And if you were a child maybe in third grade working on your reading skills or your math skills or your science skills, like we're going to meet the children, the students, we should say, where they are. So parents, maybe give yourself a break and a little extra leeway with like how you're trying to do this homeschooling thing. Because in a lot of cases, Carlos, like you said, the institutions don't have all their stuff together. And then the parents are now thrown into this huge role that some might succeed very well at and some might struggle very poorly at. So it's like one of those things where we're all kind of learning the new normal together. And it was kind of nice to see some, you know, positivity and optimistic sort of cheering going on in the interwebs that had something specifically to do with like, hey, let's take some pressure off of all of us here for a second. Like we're doing our best and it's going to be okay.
Yeah. So you bring up a really interesting point about pressure. So for context, everybody, we had a great conversation, the four of us yesterday. Yesterday morning, we just kind of got together, we were shooting the shit. That's kind of the genesis on why we said late. We should do like a daily check-in and just kind of see how each other's doing, and let's just broadcast it and talk to the world, right? So one thing you brought up yesterday, Angie, and I kind of want to pick at a little bit, is this pressure to be creative during this time, right? Like, you know, let's talk a little bit about that for the audience here.
Well, I think I also just want to share, first of all, that I'm depressed. I am really depressed about what's happening in the world today. Like, and I wanted to share that because I can only imagine how I'm feeling, how others might be feeling. And I kind of want to tell myself that it's okay to be feeling depressed at this time. And a part of that pressure is feeling that like, maybe I need to be more creative today, or maybe I need to be online all the time, having social video chats like this. When the reality is, I don't even want to do this really. I mean, I do want to do this right here, right now, but I don't want to feel pressured just because we're in a situation that is forcing us to be this way. So, that was kind of why I reached out and asked if we could like kick this off again, just because I'm feeling really um just not connected, although we are connected.
Yeah.
Um and realizing more than ever that I'm more of a social person and wanting interactions, like live interactions versus social media or video camera.
I mean, how are you guys connecting with people then? You know, in this age of social distancing.
Like in real life, or just like on a given day?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, right now
All of it.
that is real life, right?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
that
Well,
is
today I went
life.
on a walk and it was great. I walked down to a garden store here in Kansas. They have the schools shut down for the most part. They're not quite on like a, what do you call it, like shelter in place law or rule or anything quite yet, but it's coming most definitely, especially with the numbers near Kansas City and all that other stuff. But people are still every once in a while kind of bopping around, and it takes me right back to like growing up in a small town where you don't dare drive or walk past or ride past someone and not wave hello, right? Like, how rude, right? Like, how are you not going to acknowledge another person in your space? And I felt like we were kind of going back to some basics with that today during my afternoon walk, because I saw a woman who was probably like mom age to me, whatever that means, like my mom, like 50s, 60s, 70s maybe. She was riding her bike. She was trying to stay healthy. She's in a hot pink little outfit. Like she was maybe not feeling herself, but for me, that color therapy worked. Seeing somebody be active worked. She smiled and nodded and kind of like did her "hey, what's up" thing to me. And I was like, I was like a sponge. I'm like, yes, please, human interaction, like just something. And so that stuck on my mind almost all afternoon, and that was one person. So for me, I try to get out every day, because like Angie, having that actual face-to-face time and that real true connection with humans in real time, like, is so important. So if I see my mailman drop off the mail, I'm like, hey buddy, like I'm still here, we're gonna be all right. But it's getting rough. That's what I do.
Sure.
What about you, Derek?
So with my job, I am required to engage with business owners from different parts of the country. Like throughout my day, I'm contacting business owners. And so you get to hear a lot about their situation with their business, their personal situation, what they're going through, what their plan is for afterward, but not really having a timeline for what afterward looks like. And so I end up socializing in that, when I'm talking to business owners, I'm there to try and help them with their online presence. So in talking to them just about their business and about themselves and their passion for starting a business in the first place, you end up, really socializing and coming from that human standpoint of, really caring for what they're going through right now. And situation is dire for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I was on with a massage therapist today who was in tears because, she really cares about helping people and she can't do that. So she felt, compelled to help people more and more because she actually helps people with like cystic fibrosis and Crohn's, and basically takes a more holistic approach to helping those people through massage therapy. And in wanting to do that, she had a lot of people within her industry saying, don't do it because you run the risk of spreading coronavirus further to them, to the people that you care about and that you want to help. And so just hearing a business owner in that that conundrum, stuck in that dynamic of wanting to do what they love and at the same time not being able to, and not even necessarily for the sake of the bottom dollar. It's dire. That's the best way that I can describe it. The situation is dire.
Yeah.
It's surreal.
Yeah. Are you seeing the same things in Michigan? I mean, you're part of Michigan, Angie?
Yeah, I mean, I have two family members that lost their job today. So to me, it's just really surreal because I just never imagined this in our lifetimes, like ever.
Yeah, I don't think anyone ever could have like pictured this scenario, right?
Yeah. And I'm almost like just waiting for the money to run out, at this point. So
that's an interesting point you bring up, because I think so many people that I have recognized currently, I'm underemployed. I think a lot of people, depending on where you're at in the whole big picture of things, underemployment is something that we've all kind of flirted with or been a part of. I tend to title it fun employment when it comes my way, because it's very much sort of a mind game as much as it is kind of budgeting and managing your dollars. But I think that a lot of folks, even if you had a pretty well salaried full-time, benefits thick job, are really starting to feel the struggle that a lot of folks down here do, like, have lived for generations and years. And I think it's really what gives me a little bit of solace is looking back into history. So I heard somebody say this might be our Great Depression moment or something like this in the last couple of days, and I'm saying, like, I sort of, on one side, appreciate the perspective and sort of like the test in our minds of like, wow, like it is crazy bad. We are in the trenches here. We're trying to figure out how to like get through our day, our regular, develop a new normal. But then I'm also kind of comforted by the fact that these things happen kind of on like a meta level, like cyclically, right? And so like every couple of 100 years, every couple of generations, every generation perhaps, we come across this crisis moment, and each time we have the opportunity to learn from it. So I'm like trying to get kind of nerdy and theoretical in my brain about stuff, because otherwise it is all like drama and despair. And I'm saying, what can we learn from history? What can we learn from our history this last week that can make next week a little bit better? And I think that the learning curve is a little more sharp right now. People are feeling the crunch, and I'm hoping that we can apply some new ideas and be really innovative in making a difference in how we kind of thrive in this moment.
Yeah,
no, for sure. Yeah, so we're kind of in this weird kind of panic / uncertainty / fear. Like, I mean, are you guys feeling that too?
Yeah. The fear part.
Yeah, I think that the fear is what's giving me this depression. Like, but I want to hit on what you said yesterday, Carlos, during our discussion about being very present, which is something that I usually am really good at, but I feel like the last week I have not been present at all. And you were like, I don't remember exactly what you said, but you broke it down to like, well, what are you really worried about?
Oh, yeah.
What's the worst scenarios that could happen?
Right.
And when you put it into that perspective, like, well, I'm okay right now. I have food, I have a roof over my head at this minute. And but for me, I think a lot of it is just I am in my head and I don't know how to get out because I'm dealing with a situation that I can't control. And typically I control a lot of things in my life. So I know I can't control this. And I think it's just a struggle.
Yeah.
A daily struggle.
Yeah. So for context, we were talking about what's the worst case scenario that can happen, right? And for me, it was just kind of breaking it down into two things. I get sick and die, or somebody I care about gets sick and dies, right? And so, and then walking through each one of those scenarios and like figuring out, okay, well, what can I control of each of those extremes? And then just focus on the things I can control to kind of minimize the risk there. I mean, because the reality is, like, I can go out. Like, I went to the store today, and I could have gotten sick but I needed to go to the store, and I won't know for 14 more days, right? And so, it's minimizing, doing the things that I can do now to minimize the risk as much as possible, and then that way, if I do get sick and die, then things will be okay, right, for the folks that are left behind, right? And so, but that's what we get so wrapped up into, all these unrealistic kind of fears of the future. And that's where the anxiety, I think a lot of anxiety comes from. It's like, what of that can you really control? And the answer is probably not much. So why worry about it?
That's
super
true.
easy to say, super hard in practice, right?
You're just telling
Public
a
safety.
Yeti what she knows.
Public
Yeah, we just
safety
got the
message.
public safety message.
There it is, live, guys. You're hearing
Yeah.
it here first. State of Michigan.
It
Michigan.
is so intense when that blare comes across your screen. It's like
Yeah.
in super, super intense. And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I know it's real. I mean, right, for a minute there was a lot, and maybe there are still circles and places people are talking about this is a hoax or this is a joke, or why can't we just keep moving forward like business as usual? And you know, I think in general, we're all kind of, I feel like I'm pretty surrounded by people who are no longer arguing that. It is a fact. It is what's going on. This is the recommended, you know, behavioral shifts and changes. These are the things that we can expect. And to that point of control, do what you can to control your normal, or to, you know, get to a place where you can be balanced in that regard. So for me, I know like my sleep, I've been sleeping like 9 to 12 hours a day. Like I just am like, well, maybe this isn't the worst case thing for me to be going through right now. But again, as an extrovert, I'm getting a little antsy, a little itchy. Like I need to figure out a better way to handle it.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about that. So for our extroverted listeners, you know, Kim, what advice do you have for them?
Oh man, I mean, it's really hard because I walked into Aldi the other day. You talked about going to the store, and there was like 7 people maybe in the entire store, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know if I really want to be in there with these people. I'm like, 7 people? Are you kidding me? When I used to live in the city of Chicago, that'd be like in half of an aisle. Like, what do you mean? It's not a big deal, right?
Right.
But so being around people and pulling from that external energy is so important. I loved riding the train for that reason. I loved being in, like, you know, movies in the park, for example, or something like this as we get warmer weather. Like, these are the things I've been looking forward to all winter long. How dare this virus take it away from me, man? Like, what am I going to do? So I think what's been really cool is the innovation I've seen with like these Netflix watch parties, and some of the things that I've seen some of my sorority sisters come around and do some virtual happy hours. They had a virtual wake up hour because they're all young moms right now. And I'll catch you guys on the next one. But yeah, so like, I think what's really cool, I think, is these virtual parties that we bring folks together in a way that is safe and respectful of these new guidelines and rules, but allows us to kind of have our own experience in the collective. I know DJ D Nice had an Instagram like party. He had like a club party on his Instagram Live the other day, and like, what was it? 100,000 people tuned into it, including Janet Jackson and Rihanna, Justin Timberlake, Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Michelle Obama, like all these people, like, not to mention all of us regulars out here who really needed that feeling maybe of being like in the club or with some music, kind of enjoying that social atmosphere. And I know I turned it up for a few, you know, like, so I think that these things have really given me just sort of the release of feeling so cooped up and so like isolated from everybody else. So that's been a huge ticket for me in the last couple of days.
And then, go ahead, Derek. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think I'm really excited to see what comes out of this. I know, Carlos, you mentioned creatively, and kind of along those same guidelines, creatively with tech. I'm excited to see how people utilize the technology that's out there. Because let's not act like video conferencing was made yesterday. It's been around for a little bit now, but a lot of people have still kind of been out of the loop, not gotten into using it. I mentioned FaceTime to people and they're like, oh, I don't even use that. I've never used it on my Mac. What? Really? You never FaceTime somebody? Not once? All right, Aunt Pat. Anyway, so I'm excited to see where we go. I know yesterday I nerded out for a second and mentioned Ready Player One. That's a world I'm kind of looking forward to. Not all the bad stuff, but the good stuff. In us being able to have kind of a virtual reality social network environment. And I think that this situation, while it is dire, and we are probably, worst case scenario, going to have more situations like this in the future, even if it is 10 years out, I think we're going to have to adapt. And We can't be frantically buying up all the toilet paper every time this situation happens. So I am excited to see how we use technology. You know, in Chicago, I can prime now some toilet paper to me. Can't do that right now in Grand Rapids, but you know, at some point, maybe if Amazon steps it up, I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
you know.
I mean, I might know some people.
Okay.
I did get an email from Jeff Bezos the other day. That was pretty interesting. I never got an email from him
Did
before. So yeah. I mean, it was the same email that he posted to like all his social media about what he sent the company.
But he sent it to you,
I
Carlos.
did.
He sent it to
Yeah.
Carlos works for Amazon. For those of you that don't know,
I cannot confirm nor deny that. But yeah, when you look at your email and it's like Jeff Bezos, you're like, holy shit, like this is Jeff Bezos. Like that's so crazy.
Is this signature? Is the signature just a picture of him with money? Just
oh my gosh.
a bunch of money. Sitting in a throne.
It's the picture that he has when he's like walking down the street with sunglasses and he looks all swole. That's swole Jeff. That's his signature lock.
One thing I want to point out is I didn't realize how much my external interactions influenced how I felt.
Like emotionally?
Emotionally, yeah. I think that's part of why I'm feeling so depressed about everything, or just in my feelings lately, is I didn't realize how much it meant for me to get up and go to work every day, and to be in an office setting, or and I'm a virtual worker as well. I that's what I do for a living. I sell that. So, but I didn't realize how much I wagered on external interactions. And then it makes me think back to my yoga background, in which, you know, I have to seek happiness within and be happy with myself inside. And I think this is a really good opportunity in the world for all of us to be more introspective and to make peace with ourselves. And maybe there's some things I'm not at peace with. That's why I'm feeling a little unsettled, you know? So I don't know.
That's probably, you know, that's the thing. I think what unsettles people the most is when moments like this where mortality is on people's mind, right? Getting sick, something happening, you're on your mind. Then you start thinking about all the stuff you didn't do, and the some days and the regrets start to take over a little bit. And so like that's what I think the key is number one, being present, right? Because if you're present, you're not worried about the past or the future, right? Number two, settling your mind, and that's a huge part of presence. But number three is like, okay, well, if you got these things that you regret, or you've got your some days, why the fuck aren't you working on them now? Like, what's stopping you? Like, literally, you have time right now. I mean, so to be fair, okay, let's be completely fair. Medical folks that work in grocery stores, cleaning crews, truck drivers, like you guys are the real MVPs right now, right? Like. My hat's off to you. My heart is with you and your family. Like, I get it. Like, if you're in those fields that are still critical, that is providing services, like, I get it. But the vast majority of the rest of us, like, you got time now. Like, what is stopping you?
Yeah, but I think, just to be fair, like, as somebody that's feeling this right now, it's almost paralyzing.
Yeah.
In a sense. And I was listening to Joe Rogan on my way home today, to the episode with Andy Stumpf. I don't know if you guys heard that one yet, but he was talking about in the face of, like, I guess he did special ops or something where he was getting shot at a lot. And he says that sometimes people will paralyze with fear because they're worried about the bullets blazing by or whatever. So in any situation, though, you have to just stop holding on to the fear and let go and just react, right, and move past it. And I know all this stuff in theory that I got to do, but I just haven't done it.
No, it's the same thing of losing a job. Like it knocked me out. Really, like loss in general. I think what we're experiencing on, again, kind of a 60,000 foot level here is loss and not knowing how to handle it. And it took me a good couple knockdowns in my most recent lifetime to understand that the loss of certain things require the same sort of grieving process as you would if you lost a loved one, or you lost your mind. I don't know, all of these things. That's, it's like there's 4 or 5 major things that happen in our lives, and it has to do with like a detrimental health condition, losing a job, losing a loved one, and a few other like high drama related things that happen that totally debilitize us, like paralyze us. And I think that's a really fair way to kind of talk through it, because again, we kind of started out saying none of us could have really expected this to be where we're at. Now that we're here and mostly collectively agree this is where we are, I think we're starting to see folks settle in a little bit into that uncomfortable and maybe relinquish a little bit of that fear, saying, okay, we made it through the first week of my coworkers, aka my housemates, aka I have to be around them 24/7. Like, why do you have to breathe like that? Like, oh my, it's
Why
like we're coming across these things.
Why are you doing that?
It's
No, it's
testing
exactly
everything.
that, Tim. It is exactly that. Like I am mourning. I feel like I am mourning. And then I feel shame for feeling the way that I've been feeling.
Well, what if you pause there though?
Yeah.
What if you pause that before the shame sets in? Because trust, that's a whole nother bag of we don't got time right now. But like in the fear and in the fact that you're like, man, I'm mourning this loss of my normal job routine or my normal routine in general. And you get paralyzed in the like hopelessness of how heavy and how big returning to that normal might be, or rebuilding a new normal after this. To Derek's point, things are going to change, probably indefinitely. Like we aren't going to, and I just posted something on my personal social media about how we won't be going back to the world we left pre this whole situation. There's no way. There are so many opportunities if you want to start spinning it and getting, political and social and all this other stuff. But just in general, we're not going to be able to do things the way we about how we won't be going back. So I think you should take time to kind of mourn the loss and find the grieving, mechanisms to move through the process and give yourself some grace, knowing it is a process every day, one day at a time. But yeah, I think what we need to do in our opportunity to connect is share those tidbits and those gems and those flickers of light, because you're not the only one. Right now I'm in a decent mood, but about 3 hours ago, not so much. So it's one of those things where it's going to come around, and I think we got to share our strategies with each other in order to make it,
it's really interesting you brought that up, because I just did an interview with our next episode for Storm Champ, and she talked about grieving. Like, this is a period of grieving for a lot of folks, and I had never even thought of it that way. It's like, okay, cool, then like let's talk about that. Like, what are we grieving here, right? And like
independence.
Yeah. So if you understand the stages of grief too, like it's the whole the first thing is what it's denial, I think, is phase 1.
Yeah.
And I think maybe some folks are still in denial, or or maybe moving into that stage 2 of like, holy shit, what's really happening, right? Like,
it can't be that bad, right? It's like, oh shit, it's bad.
Yeah.
I've had some anger creep up too.
The flu.
Yeah, angry.
I was the same. I mean, it's full disclosure. Like, when this first started, I was like, okay, this is the fucking flu. Like,
right.
It's not a big deal. Like, let's just wash your hands a little bit more, whatever. And I mean, now I don't fear it. It's just more of like, all right, well, I'm going to be super careful.
You're going to take the necessary steps.
Yeah, sure. If not for myself, then for everyone around me, right? So it's like, and but the idea of grieving is really interesting to me, because I don't feel that. Like, to me, it's an opportunity for growth and creativity, and like, I can't wait to see all the new stuff that comes out of this. Like, 2 years from now, when you're like, the next big business is going to be like, it started during the pandemic. It's like, I can't wait to hear those stories, right? Like, that's
I would argue, Carlos, your drug of choice is resilience, and I mean, I think all of us are kind of working in that, but I think that might be part of why your framework is so strong in the positive. And I think that most of us have been through things in our life, right, where the grief process is not linear, and you circle right back around to a couple steps you thought you just got through, and things happen like that. I think part of my challenge has been accepting what I can't do anything about, except I know what I know what I don't know, and I got to accept it for what it is. And it's just like so frustrating. It's gotten to a point for me where I get angry. I get angry at the person who coughed on the street. Who the fuck are you? Why? How dare you cough? Spring allergies be damned. Like, whatever, and I'm like, Kim, why are you snapping at people just trying to breathe? Like, so.
And I generally think that I'm a very positive person, and I usually look at life half full, like the cup is half full versus empty. But I don't know, for some reason, this is just hitting me in a way where I feel like my independence is gone, or there's just so many unknown variables. I think that's probably what it is that I just don't know. And I do worry about my loved ones to the point where my boyfriend tells me I talk about my mom in my sleep, like, and so I think I have a couple people in my life that are older that I worry about or have ailing health. I'm not really scared about the future in the sense that I think obviously like humanity is resilient, or there's a reason that the earth is doing this.
I feel like that was a really important point.
What?
No, it's frozen. Oh, nothing. Never mind. It just froze on my end. And it was stopped. And I was like, no, you can't cliffhanger there.
Important point?
I don't know. I didn't even hear most of what you just said. I'm sorry. Internet connection problems. Hi, everybody.
Welcome to Storm Champ.
Welcome to Storm Champ.
So kind of wrapping this up a little bit, like, okay, let's offer everyone one piece of advice from each one of us. So let's start with Derek, because you've been the most quiet tonight.
No pressure.
That's no pressure. In general.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah. For all of you working from home, get into a routine. Mm-hmm. Treat it as if you're going to work anyway. Still get up relatively early and, just follow your similar routine. Don't work in your bed. It allegedly makes it harder for you to fall asleep, and I'll cut the list there. There'll be plenty to share another time, but try to keep a routine so you're used to going into work and working in a place that isn't also where you sleep, that will impact your sleep later on and make it hard for you to work the next day.
Yeah, that's so important. My routine is all messed up right now. Kim, what's your piece of advice?
Oh, okay. I'll try to keep it short and sweet as well. Okay, so there's two things. Because we need to bring in joy and we need to release like the anger, bullshit, frustration, right? So like bring in joy and release that anger and frustration. The way that I would recommend you do this, and this is not like by any grand mastery of my own, I've just seen some folks post about it and it sounds fun, so I've been trying to do it in my life. You got to bring in joy first thing in the damn morning or mid-afternoon or whatever time your eyeballs open on this lovely planet we share. What you need to do is you need to get, maybe it's DJ D Nice's playlist, or maybe you ask Alexa for like the top 20 songs from last week. I don't know, but you got to like dance it out. Physical movement, get silly. If you got kids, I promise they'll help you. And they'll probably love to get into it. Bring joy into your space. You guys, we're all kind of stressed out and bouncing off the walls. Like bring joy, be silly, and physically manifest that shit. Then when it gets to, I would say for me, it's usually about 2:42 p.m. Just depends on where you're at and what's going on in your life. But then you got to release that shit. And so I saw somebody have posted that they had witnessed in like an apartment complex. I have like 12 or 14 different people living in this building with me. But they were witnessed somebody walk out of the building. It was a dad midweek last week with like his 3 kids. They walked out kind of silently in line. I'm sure they were trying to do their homeschool thing. And all of a sudden, just screaming out at the sky. Just, I think it was more for dad than maybe the kids. I'm assuming, but dad, along with the kids, just screaming, just bellowed, just guttural, like get it out, like get that anger and frustration out, all that stress. Again, manifest it physically and throw it out there. And then you re-enter this tiny little space we all share, and hopefully everything feels a little bit lighter and better again. So for me, that is my 2 tips, just because I know what I need and what I kind of internalize and build up. And I definitely need more joy in my life, and I definitely need to release some anger. So
nice. I like that. Angie.
My first one would be to say that it is okay to be in whatever feelings, or to acknowledge the feelings that you're having. Because somebody's going through something similar to what you're going through. 2 is to remember that we're all connected, which is something I forget. And so these interactions like this are important because we all are connected to each other, whether we realize it or not. So just remember that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So my advice is sit down, get out a piece of paper, come up with your list of some days, all of them, everything that comes to your head, something you've said, I'll do this someday. Losing weight, starting a business, starting a podcast, doing art, whatever it is, come up with your list of some days, prioritize them in the order that you think they should be, and then figure out a way to do the first one during this time, right? So we're going to be doing this for at least like a month for the most part. Some of us probably longer, depending on where area you're in. You got time now, so do it. Sit down, think about it, put some creative effort into yourself, unselfishly, or maybe selfishly if you have to, because that's okay, and get after it and create. Just create. Cool. All right. So I think the plan is we're going to try to do a check-in every day this week and see how it goes. The times may vary depending on people's schedules. So, but yeah, this is day one. So if you like what you heard, please leave a comment on our website or leave a comment on Facebook. Make sure you check out our website at stormchamp.com. There you can find links to all our social media and our past episodes. We've got a couple lined up that should be coming your way very shortly. Team, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Love you guys. Be well.
We love you too. All right, everybody.
Likewise.
Take care.